Super Lucky Disaster Man. Chapter 40, Miko-sensei came to the door. Natsume Soseki, the legendary strongest ability user, regardless of how this reputation came to be, his ability, I am a cat, on the surface, seems to merely allow him to transform into a calico cat. Even this apparent ability, no one knows much about it. Mori Ogai, being one of his students, could barely piece together fragments of information through various means of intel gathering. Another student, Fukuzawa Yukichi, was too righteous, and apart from initially asking around everywhere to establish the armed detective agency, attempting to recruit members, he no longer investigated Natsume Soseki-sensei afterward, and thus had no related information at all. At this moment, Natsume Soseki, using his ability to transform into a calico cat, entered the bar to gather information. Listening to the conversation of 3 members of the Port Mafia, he fell into deep thought. Natsume Soseki entered this bar with his initial target being Dazai Osamu. As a government-affiliated figure, although Natsume Soseki has announced his retirement, it's impossible for him to let go completely. He still keeps an eye on relevant intel daily, especially regarding his tripartite framework. During the day it's the government, at dusk it's the armed detective agency, and at night it's the Port Mafia, with all 3 parties together protecting Yokohama. This has always been his focus. Compared to Fukuzawa Yukichi's upright style, Mori Ogai's path had already deviated a bit from his discipline at the time of the military police, causing Natsume Soseki even more concern. Especially since this disciple is in charge of the chaotic affairs of the Port Mafia. Although Natsume Soseki has some confidence in his ability to read people, human emotions and changes are unpredictable. Occasionally visiting to ensure the other party hasn't gone astray helps him sleep a little better at night. As for Mori Ogai's disciple, Dazai Osamu, Natsume Soseki pays even more attention to him. This is truly rare to encounter, the ability that can disable other ability users' abilities. It could be said to be something like a safety lock, but unfortunately, even without running into Mori Ogai, this child's personality is somewhat immoral, making the chance of being taken to the government side quite low. From this perspective, Natsume Soseki actually understands a bit of Mori Ogai's concerns. This child's immoral personality could indeed be like an unpredictable bomb. Mori Ogai has always attempted to place shackles on his head logically. But his methods are still too ineffective. No choice, when he took in this disciple, he was already of an age where his worldview had formed, and in this aspect, he couldn't do much. Since it's not a particularly big matter now, he wouldn't interfere in his disciple's affairs. However, it is still necessary to stay informed, that way, when something does come up, he would have enough intel to know how to handle it. Recently, Natsume Soseki learned through some channels that Dazai Osamu had been going out drinking with friends at night. So, he headed to the bar to do some undercover observation. But actually, unexpectedly, before he met with Dazai Osamu, he encounters the young assassin Oda Sakanosuke that he had met once before in the past. Could it be that Dazai Osamu's friend is actually Oda Sakanosuke? This really is quite unexpected. Relying on acting cute to stay at the bar, Natsume Soseki patiently waited for his target to appear. Although his mission required him to approach the target, Natsume Soseki didn't forget about Dazai Osamu's ability. If he accidentally got touched and turned back into human form, it would be too embarrassing, so he nimbly avoided him. After all, cats are capricious, refusing to be touched is perfectly normal. Natsume Soseki calmly thought this way. Dazai Osamu, feeling dissatisfied at being ignored, said, "Just a calico cat, not as adorable as Komaida-kun." When Natsume Soseki heard the name, Komaida, his instinct told him something was off. This name doesn't sound like an ordinary person would give to their cat, and even more strangely, he had come across this surname before in Ayatsuji Yukito's murder investigation file in the Special Division. That surname is not commonly seen. If Dazai Osamu is truly referring to the person he knows, why would he compare a human to a cat? After that, Natsume Soseki saw Dazai Osamu holding a phone showing off a picture of a cat, and even called that cat, Komaida-kun. While Natsume Soseki was a bit confused, Sakaguchi Ango, who had been sent by the Special Division to infiltrate the port mafia, explained Natsume Soseki's doubts. Natsume Soseki. Not good. I should be more careful from now on. Dazai Osamu has come into contact with an ability that can turn people into cats. If he somehow connects it to me, that would be troublesome. However, compared to the risk of his own identity being discovered, Natsume Soseki was now even more interested in Komai de Nagito. To be noticed by Dazai Osamu, and even brought up among friends at a gathering, was this a first? Natsume Soseki then listened to a bunch of, Komai de-kun really likes Natsume-sensei, those sentences I haven't seen before, and other random remarks. Natsume Soseki. Up until this moment, Natsume Soseki had remained calm, wondering whether Komai de-kun had mixed things up or if imitating his writing style had caused some misunderstanding. Dazai Osamu continued discussing Komai de Nagito and Natsume Soseki. For example, I am a cat. Natsume Soseki. Suddenly hearing the name of his well-protected ability mentioned in such a situation, Natsume almost bristled all over. Impossible. Even the government and those closest to him only know that he turns into a cat, but as for what his ability is called, he hasn't told anyone yet. What on earth is going on with this Komai de Nagito? Natsume Soseki was so frightened that he almost forgot his original purpose. He forced himself to endure the situation at the bar for a while longer, and after roughly confirming the dynamic among these three, he jumped off the bar counter and swiftly ran towards the exit. Ah, the cat's running away. Oda Sakunosuke remarked casually. That cat obviously just wants to freeload food and drink, otherwise it wouldn't be that chubby. Oda Saku, no need to worry. Dazai Osamu said, unconcerned. Natsume Soseki nearly tripped when he heard these words. This old man. This old man is not fat. And as for freeloading. Well, everyone was very enthusiastic, how could that be considered freeloading? This brat really doesn't know how to speak. How did Mori Ogai teach him? After confirming that the calico cat had run far away, Dazai Osamu asked thoughtfully, by the way, Oda Saku also petted that cat just now, right? Was it male or female? Calicos are mostly female. A male one would be quite valuable, Sakaguchi Ango replied casually. Why are you suddenly asking about that, Dazai? Just a random question out of curiosity, Dazai Osamu said. Oda Saku? Oda Sakunosuke raised the glass and remained silent for a few seconds. I didn't pay attention. Saying that, no one would confirm the other party's gender just by glancing at the front, right? It felt a bit strange. Well, if you encounter it again next time, Oda Saku, please pay a bit more attention, Dazai Osamu said with a cheerful laugh. I feel that it's a male, want to bet on it? Sakaguchi Ango, who was observing the entire time, didn't immediately think of Dazai Osamu suspecting the cat's identity. I am a cat, was just the name of a new work that came to his mind first, rather than any ability name. He didn't even think of Natsume Soseki, so he added fuel to the fire. Good then I bet that's a female cat, based on the probability, the chance of it being a female cat is quite high. The bet is that whoever loses next time will treat the other to a meal. Although betting against Dazai Osamu seems like seeking death in the port mafia, Sakaguchi Ango, who was rather familiar with Dazai Osamu as a friend, felt this was just a game. After all, the stakes weren't high, and there was no psychological pressure to bet. How about Oda Saku? Sakaguchi Ango asked. Me? Oda Sakunosuke thought for a moment. I'm in charge of checking the gender, so I'll refrain from betting. Dazai Osamu let out a laugh. Alright, then once Oda Saku confirms the answer, let me and Ango know who wins. I think that cat will show up again. Dazai wants to get a cat. Sakaguchi Ango felt today's topic was a bit strange. As soon as he arrived, he was faced with Dazai Osamu's cat show-off. Now, Dazai started a random discussion about a cat's gender they had just encountered. Even though their previous chats were often quite pointless, they had never sunk to this level. No, Dazai Osamu replied decisively. I have no particular interest in cats. If I must say, I'm just a bit more interested in it than in dogs. The corner of Sakaguchi Ango's mouth twitched. Really, not interested in cats, huh? Then why do you have so many photos of Komai-de-kun cat on your phone? There are even videos. He hasn't even met Komai-de-kun in person, and yet he already feels embarrassed. Dazai-osamu, seeing Sakaguchi Ango muttering complaints, explained, Komai-de-kun isn't actually a cat. If he's not actually a cat, then isn't it even worse that you put his picture as your phone wallpaper? Sakaguchi Ango adjusted his glasses and retorted. Dazai-osamu, with an air of justification, besides you guys, none would know. Moreover, I did it right in front of Komai-de-kun, and he didn't say anything. Sakaguchi Ango. At that time, he was just a cat. How could he have said anything? Meowing at you, would you actually understand it? Regarding Komai de Nagito, Sakaguchi Ango didn't really have a deep understanding of his personality. Using normal human logic, he thought perhaps the other party was in a confused cat state and, after turning back into a human, was too embarrassed to mention it again, which is why Dazai-osamu was so arrogant up until now. Alright, Ango, you're becoming quite long-winded. Dazai-osamu casually set a picture of Komai-de as a cat as his phone wallpaper. Don't you think Komai-de-kun's eyes are beautiful? Other Siberian cat does not have the same color of those eyes either. That ability user is already dead, and if I delete it, I won't be able to see this again. A childish pride gleamed in his eyes, and he waved his phone at Sakaguchi Ango. The one and only in the world. Sakaguchi Ango. Komai-de-kun, how pitiful. It seems that only Ango hasn't met Komai-de-kun yet. Oda Sakunosuke also seemed to be in thought, let's find an opportunity to introduce him to Ango. Komai-de-kun is only 15, he can't come to a bar. Sakaguchi Ango looked at Dazai-osamu, unable to describe his feelings. Do you have the right to say this, Dazai? I'm mafia, I don't need to care about the law, but Komai-de-kun is an ordinary citizen. Dazai-osamu spoke as he tried to put his phone into his pocket, but ended up failing. He was startled, realizing that today he wasn't wearing his usual clothes, so he changed the location and tried again. Oda Sakunosuke nodded calmly, I understand. You don't want Komai-de-kun coming here, so changing the location is fine, right? Not right. The point is that we can't introduce him to Ango. Sakaguchi Ango adjusted his glasses. Dazai, do you have a problem with me? Oda Sakunosuke pondered for a moment. Maybe it's because Ango might get along with Komai-de-kun. I also get along with Komai-de-kun, we're pen pals, and Ango might also become pen pals with Komai-de-kun. In that case, only Dazai wouldn't be part of it. Dazai really doesn't like writing random thoughts. Sakaguchi Ango looked at Dazai-osamu with a speechless expression. Is that the case, Dazai? Dazai-osamu gave Oda Sakunosuke a deep look. Oda-saku. Oda Sakunosuke looked at Dazai-osamu without any particular emotion and continued, actually, I think Komai-de-kun just wouldn't admit it, but deep down, maybe he considers you a friend. Today, all your clothes are Komai-de-kun's, right? I also think if he truly thought of you as just a regular acquaintance, he'd be more inclined to have your subordinate bring you clothes, rather than lending his own. Sakaguchi Ango added, Yokohama is so small, even the time for a bath is enough to bring them over. Dazai-osamu, although he mentioned some things about Komai de Nagito earlier, didn't go into as much detail as he did like with Mori Ogai. For instance, he didn't mention anything about trying to commit suicide in someone's bathroom, only briefly mentioning things that Oda Sakunosuke seemed interested in, like matters related to Natsume Soseki. As for how they could figure it out, for the former assassin Oda Sakunosuke, with his keen observation skills, and for the intelligence officer Sakaguchi Ango, it was still quite clear. Dazai-osamu usually wore formal attire befitting a high-ranking member of the Port Mafia, but today he was in casual wear, with his sleeves even slightly short. Just now, Dazai-osamu, unfamiliar with the position of the pockets in this outfit, almost dropped his phone. His entire style had completely changed. You guys don't understand. Dazai Osamu reminisced about Komaeda Nagito's strange impression meter, and felt a bit like complaining, but he held back. His usual playful expression became a bit more serious. Anyway, keep it to male contact, and don't get too close to him in real life for now. Sakaguchi Ango didn't really have any intention of knowing Komaeda Nagito, and had just mentioned him in passing, since he was well informed after all. Is it because that kid is being watched by a few groups? Keeping a distance is also good. Especially since this even included their superior, Mori Ogai. Like Oda Sakanosuke, who didn't want to draw attention as a low-ranking member, it really wasn't advisable to have too much open contact with Komaeda-kun. Don't talk about this. Dazai Osamu restored his smile. Is there anything fun lately? The next day, when Komaeda Nagito left the house, he found a cute calico cat in the yard. He instinctively touched his own face. Morofushi Hiramitsu's medicine worked well. His wound had healed quite a bit, but seeing the cat still made him feel a bit PTSD. Meow, the calico cat seemed very affectionate, actively approaching, circling around Komaeda Nagito's feet. Komaeda Nagito felt a bit relieved, squatted down and patted the cat. I can't keep a cat, you should try another house, okay? The calico cat didn't seem to understand and continued meowing at him. Komaeda Nagito didn't waste time lingering around the calico cat, he quickly stood up. The calico cat obediently squatted down to the side. Komaeda Nagito also had no intention of chasing the cat away and directly headed out the door, walking in the direction of the public transit station. After watching him leave, the calico cat soon circled around the house. It discovered that the bathroom window was half open, likely for ventilation. The anti-theft bars outside the window could stop people, but they couldn't stop a cat. The calico cat stepped back a few paces, took a leap, hooked onto the railing, and tried to squeeze its body through the gap. This old man. Not fat. No need to lose weight. With such a belief, the calico cat successfully entered the bathroom. Although Natsume Soseki was once a government official, sometimes when he started doing things, he had a similar mindset to the Japanese police. Illegal intrusion could be a means to achieve the goal. Of course, ending things properly was also essential. Natsume Soseki flicked his fur, avoiding the water droplets from the bathroom, then went through the open door and directly entered the living room. The layout of this house was quite classic, so with just a glance, Natsume Soseki could determine where the bedroom was. No, of course, he wasn't planning to do anything bad, just that there was something he needed to confirm to be at ease. Since hearing Dazai Osamu say those words at the bar yesterday, Natsume Soseki immediately contacted his acquaintances in the government to gather information related to Komaeda Nagito, including mentions from the Special Division, Ayatsuji Yukito's investigative report on his nature, and also the results of Sakaguchi Ango causing the Special Division to work overtime to compile for half a day, which concluded he was an ordinary person. All of it was brought over for further research. It must be said, Komaeda Nagito's information, for an ordinary person without abilities, is somewhat excessively complex. He looked at all those intricately constructed coincidences of the other's life, falling into deep thought. Natsume Soseki thought of the words he heard at a bar. This child, throughout his life, would always gain only to lose again, never able to hold on to the things he values, and the loss and gain are never truly balanced, and this isn't even an ability, there's fundamentally no way to control or prevent it. Especially since he lost his parents in elementary school, Natsume Soseki couldn't help but worry about what kind of personality such a person would develop. Natsume Soseki also did not fully trust the materials presented in the documents, even though the majority of people evaluated Komaeda Nagito as calm and open-minded. He couldn't simply accept it like that and felt it necessary to see it with his own eyes before coming to a definitive conclusion. Moreover, the materials did not show any particular connection between Komaeda Nagito and himself. There wasn't even a letter sent to the publisher. Natsume Soseki deeply doubted how Komaeda Nagito knew the name of his ability, and he found it hard to trust any of the related materials. If he could hide so much from the intelligence divisions, then what kind of terrifying force was manipulating him from behind? Thinking of this, Natsume Soseki immediately felt a sense of crisis, and he even couldn't trust others. Looking at those documents, with so many people, no one had noticed any problems, so could investigating again yield any new conclusions? In the end, he decided to handle it himself. Dazai Osamu said that Komaeda Nagito wrote those things in his textbooks, so he should look in the study or places like the nightstand. Natsume Soseki entered the room and immediately noticed that the bedroom and study had been merged into one, which was very convenient for his investigation. However, he didn't act recklessly right away. Instead, he pretended to be a real curious cat, looking around to see if there were any cameras. There was no other choice. Living in Yokohama, everyone had a particularly heightened sense of caution. It wasn't uncommon to have surveillance cameras, wiretapping devices, and similar gadgets installed at home. Even if Komaeda Nagito himself didn't set them up, the international crime organization that was investigating him might sneak in and install something. If Natsume Soseki were exposed because of this kind of situation, he'd have no face left to go mooch off. Ahem, receive feeding anymore. After checking, Natsume Soseki confirmed it was safe and transformed back into his human form. It wasn't just because his paws made turning the pages inconvenient. He certainly couldn't take each book off the shelf with his mouth and leave bite marks. That would be hard to explain. Natsume Soseki picked up a Japanese language textbook that was on the table, casually flipped through it, and, as expected, found the passages Dazai Osamu had mentioned. The only truly serious philosophical question is suicide. We already know that life is a tragedy, and what's even sadder is that you aren't even the protagonist of this tragedy, fate is. That sentence is very strange. He has never seen it before, but almost every sentence expresses deep viewpoints that are rarely expressed by contemporary writers. He believes these sentences could not have been written by Komaeda Nagito, a mere teenager, especially since the slightly longer sentences also show, from the detailed word choices, that they must have come from different hands. Where did Komaeda Nagito read all this from? Natsume Soseki pondered, turning the pages, as more fragments of text came into his view. Natsume Kinnosuke, diabetes. Seeing this, Natsume Soseki took a sharp breath. Natsume Kinnosuke, that is his real name. Because of wanting to do extremely dangerous work, and also adhering to the principle of mysterious actions, he took on the pen name of Natsume Soseki from the very beginning as his operation period. Even the number of government officials who know his real name could be counted on one hand, and all intel about him had been erased. This child, Komaeda Nagito, just how did he know? Komaeda Nagito, after buying the items and returning, placed them in the living room, having a faint premonition. It was as if something was about to happen, but he couldn't find a single clue, having no prediction at all about this. However, to Komaeda Nagito, this didn't matter at all. Danger to him was also an opportunity. He never worried about it. When heading towards the bedroom, Komaeda Nagito suddenly realized the reason he felt something was wrong. When he left, the bedroom door was closed, but now it was slightly ajar. Komaeda Nagito hesitated for a moment. Come in, Komaeda-kun. The person inside seemed to have no intention of hiding their presence and spoke out loud directly. We need to talk. Chapter 40 End.